Hi, I have a little story time. So, what's up? I used to work at a certain job, doesn't matter the job, but there was a manager that I had there. He was fairly new, and this was about 3 or 4 years ago. He was fairly new, he's figuring out his own stuff, and I just got switched to day shift, which is the shift that he is working on. And I just felt like he was always after, like, trying to get me. Like, anytime I was doing anything, like talking to anyone, it's okay, let's get back to work. Like, it seemed like every time I was there, that's when he'd show up and say something. I only made it on day shift for like a couple of weeks, and I was like, you know, I'm done. I quit. I was like, I'm not gonna keep getting talked to like that, this or that. And I think I just also didn't want to be there anymore. But three or 4 years later, I just ran into him at the gas station. And I was like, man, do I say something? Do I not say something? So I called out to him. I called out his name, and then he recognized me, and we started talking, and I was like, yeah, like, I know we had some beef. And he was like, girl, I don't have any beef. Like, what? And I was like, what? I was like, I thought that, like, it just seemed like you were always like out to get me. And he told me, he gave me a different perspective, and it was actually about somebody else that was a manager that had been there longer, that seemed to have an issue with me, and also an issue with somebody that I was talking to, like, at my place of work. That doesn't really matter to me. That person, I don't really care if they had certain feelings, whatever it was. But I'm just like, dang, like, sometimes you really can internalize something and create a whole story that isn't true. That's not to say that some of those feelings weren't valid, because I brought that up to him, like, man, it just seemed like every time you came up to me, at first it was like you were really nice, and then all of a sudden it was just like, oh, like discipline in a way. And he was like, oh, okay, I can understand that. His perspective after I quit, he was like, damn, I didn't even get to know her. Like, I didn't even get to have a chance to know her. In my head, I was like, this dude cannot wait until I leave this job. Right? So I just want to give a little perspective shift out there to, you don't always know what somebody's thinking or what's going on. You might internalize it and totally whatever. And then he ended up, I'm in kind of like a hard financial spot, and he offered, which was very hard for me to accept, but he offered to buy my things at the gas station that I ran into him at, which was really cool and really kind and sweet. I cried a lot. You can maybe tell I'm a little bit red. I was crying a lot because it was so overwhelming. Like, maybe certain beliefs I had about myself, embarrassment I had from that situation, like, come to find that really it was just another person, that it wasn't even him, but it was another person that was experiencing jealousies. But I took it out on that person because they were the one that did come to me, so I'm not gonna beat myself up for that. At the end of the day, I'm so grateful that I had that conversation with him, and we got, like, connected with numbers and stuff, and it's just, like, I don't even know. What I can say is sometimes maybe you don't have all the facts. Your feelings are valid. Your feelings are true. No, your feelings are valid, but it doesn't make them true. What a confusing concept. Okay, if you have a feeling, you can't control that. You feel what you feel. At the end of the day, just because you felt that feeling, it doesn't mean that necessarily where that feeling came from, that thing is true. Let me give an example. I just gave that to you. So in my head, I felt like he was intentionally coming at me. That I was being singled out. That I was being talked to like I was a child. And that feeling was valid. That is how I felt. Is that actually what he was thinking when everything happened? I don't know that. I don't know that as a fact. I don't have factual proof for that. Did it come across that way? Feel that way? Yes. After talking to him now, just like, no, I think that it just ended up being a weird thing. It ended up being a weird thing that I'm so grateful that got passed today. And then another co-worker came out of the gas station that I loved at that same job too. And he and I had like a little laugh and giggle together. He doesn't speak like the most English, so it was mostly us just back and forth, how are you, and laughing. He's a Filipino man, so he knows that some of those Tagalog swear words that I was gracefully taught by an old friend of mine. Yeah. I wanna put out the message that don't get too caught up in your perspective, because you never know what the other person's actually thinking or what's actually going on. Yeah. Stay safe out there. Know that you're blessed. You're being watched over. You're protected. You got it. You can do this shit. You can do this shit. Love you.